Okay, Wednesday, 17 January, Year of our Lord 2024. Thank you for sticking around for the second hour of the War Room. This is where, as you know, we got a little different clock. I can get into topics in more detail. The president's supposed to speak at 7 o'clock. He may or may not be running late. We're trying to get to all that. I want to get another Arctic blast throughout the country, massive snow out in the American Redoubt. I'm going to go to Davos here in a minute with our own Noor Ben Ladin, but I want to start with Joe Rieck. Joe, once again, I just want to make sure everybody's got access to the generators, everything you got up, the in-room heating. This blast is affecting all over the country. I think Nashville got a bunch more snow. It's just bitter cold, the whole thing. So where do people go?
Yeah, you got to go to mypatriotsupply.com. Right now, we have our generator 300 on sale right now where you can save up to $50. Now, this is a unit that comes complete. It comes with the 100-watt solar panel. It comes with the Y adapter cord, so you can actually hook up a second panel and harvest up to 200 watts from the sun to recharge your solar unit. It can power your CPAP machines. It can power small refrigerators, your laptops. It can even charge your cell phone up to 20 times with one charge. Units like the solar generators, units like the Vesta indoor space heater are critical, especially right now when we have massive power outage. We have this cold front that's blasting Americans. In fact, there's a few 100,000 people right now without power, and these items are life-saving. You know, we have the world's first indoor self-powered space heater sitting right behind me, this Vesta unit. It can heat up a room to up to 72 degrees, 200 square foot room. So you get a couple of those for your home. You can put them in there. They're completely safe. It runs off of our 6-hour canned heat, so you can have, continuous heat throughout the night. And of course, we still have our long-term emergency food. With these icy roads, it's very difficult for some of these trucks to deliver food to the grocery store, so you got to get prepared. And like you tell the War Room posse, Steve, preparation is key. It's a lot better to get prepared before an emergency than getting prepared during. So right now, take advantage of the special offers that we have. And if you don't know what to do or how to get started, immerse yourself in the information, as you like to say. Give us a call. We have preparedness specialists standing by, ready to take your phone call. And if you want to get that number is 866-229-0927. But disaster can strike anywhere, and it always pays to be prepared, Steve.
No, this is what I want to do. I know a lot of people this is kind of unfamiliar territory, but we need to be prepared. And the reason we need to be prepared, so it doesn't take away from your time manning the ramparts, because you're having such a huge impact on the world. We're going to go to Noor Ben Ladin in a moment from Davos, and she will tell you, not only is MAGA ascendant, people know it's ascendant, and they're afraid of it. Joe, one more time, I want everybody today to call and to start talking to your folks, build relationship with My Patriot Supply. It's the #1 company in the segment. You guys started, a couple of years ago, 10 years ago or something?
15 years ago. Room. Yeah, 15 years ago selling emergency seeds.
Unbelievable. The Patriot seeds.
Yeah,
one more time. What's the number they go to and start? No, you're the best.
Yes.
Give us the number, and where do people go?
So the number is 866-229-0927. And of course, the website is mypatriotsupply.com. There you can find hundreds of items that we offer, some of the best items in the industry. Nobody can touch our long-term emergency food. Our 3-month kit, it's on sale right now at $597. You're saving over $200 on that. Get it now, because all of the things that are going on in the world, we are literally on the verge of World War III. With the movements by China, with the movements by Russia, invading more of the Ukraine. There's even talks about them invading Germany. The whole European nation is on notice right now. Yep. Sweden's getting ready for war. And we saw the disruptions in the supply chain, and we can see how quickly it can affect us here in the homeland. So right now, you got to get prepared, because, Steve, nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to worry about your preparedness more than yourself. Get the peace of mind, do the work, and get prepared. And if you don't know how to do it, give us a call. We're happy to help you out in any ways that we can.
Brother, thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for being there for the audience. So let's make sure you guys log your phone calls in today, or go to the website. Thank you, sir. Joe Rieck.
All right, thanks, Steve. You guys be safe.
My Patriot Supply, #1 company in the space. Somebody we need a generator and heater for is Noor Ben Ladin. Noor, give us your assessment. You're a couple of days into this. You said something the audience just loved today, that MAGA and Trump are living rent-free in our psychopathic overlords' heads in Davos. Tell us about it.
Yes, absolutely. As we discussed in the morning show earlier, President Trump is very, very much present here, even though he is not physically here, obviously. But also during the morning show, Steve, the focus was on the deconstruction of the administrative state. And I think it is so important to state that the focus of the Davosian cult is the consolidation of the administrative state as a gateway to the socialist state, as a gateway to the communist state. This is what they are planning here in Davos. And I wanted to read to the War Room Posse one short quote by this man named Dan Smoot. He published in 1962 a book which you can find as a PDF online entitled The Invisible Government. And he had this to say: they are determined to convert this republic into a socialist province of a one world socialist system. And this is, as I just said, exactly what is going on here in Davos. And that is why they hate President Trump. They hate MAGA. They hate America first, because it is about remaining a sovereign republic. And this is what they fear the most.
Noor, as usual, you've come up with something brilliant, because it keeps saying here, Trump's a cult leader, this is a cult, MAGA's a cult. You just said the cult of Davos. What do you mean by that? Because Davos, man, is put up as that's the insider. Everybody in every investment bank, every business school, and I mean throughout the world, whether you're in India, Japan, Shanghai, the United States, whether you're at Harvard or Sloan or anywhere, your ticket to the big leagues is to become Davos man, to get invited, to be able to come here or come as a viewer. Why do you call it a cult?
I call it a cult because we are in the year 2024, but this plan dates back to way longer than this. From my research focusing on the more modern history, I would say it dates back to 1815 and the Congress of Vienna. And what happened in the 19th century and the 20th century. And so it is a cult because it's at its root an ideology, and it's a plan that is intergenerational. And we are seeing the materialization of this plan today in 2024 because of the advent of technology and all the different developments of the last 50, 60, 70 years. There's been really an acceleration post-World War II. The world and the state post-World War II, the culmination has brought us to this point where they are on the brink of realizing this one world government, which they've been talking about for generations and generations. They've had different names for it. They've just circled back to the term New World Order. It's been uttered several times on different panels. It went to global governance, Great Reset, Build Back Better. They have all these catch terms, and we're back to one world order, and they're openly talking about it. And so this is not a conspiracy because it's not hidden, and it's never been hidden, Steve. They've been talking about plans for the centralization of power via these international institutions for ages. And if I have a few minutes, there's something else I would like to read to the War Room Posse that is really important, to show how captured the establishment of the United States is, and this infiltration that has been taking place since your independence in 1776. I'm just going to take one moment in time, which is the year 1972, when the Club of Rome published their seminal book, The Limits to Growth. In the aftermath of that book, which I'm sure your audience will be familiar with, a lesser known thing happened, which is in 1975, Henry Steele Commager put out a statement called a Declaration of Interdependence. And I want to read one or two excerpts from this so-called Declaration of Interdependence, and then I'm going to tell you who signed it, right? Because Americans need to understand that this has been going on for a really long time. So part of the statement reads, 2 centuries ago, our forefathers brought forth a new nation. Now we must join with others to bring forth a new world order. We affirm that the resources of the globe are finite, not infinite, that they are the heritage of no one nation or generation, but of all peoples, nations, and of prosperity, that our deepest obligation is to transmit to that prosperity a planet richer in material bounty, in beauty, and in delight than we found it. Narrow notions of national sovereignty must not be permitted to curtail that obligation. 32 senators and 92 representatives in 1975 signed this treasonous declaration of interdependence, and it was endorsed, obviously, by UN agencies. And just to wrap up on this topic of what happened at that time, you had one brave Republican Congresswoman, Marjorie Holt from Maryland. She refused to sign that declaration, and she had this to say: it calls for the surrender of our national sovereignty to international organizations. It declares that our economy should be regulated by international authorities. It proposes that we enter a new world order that would redistribute the wealth created by the American people. And Steve, don't tell me that this isn't exactly what's been happening for the past 50, 60, 70 plus years, the redistribution of the wealth of the American people.
I wanted to say something. Henry Steele Commager was one of the foundational thinkers for American liberalism in the post-war order, very big proponent of Adlai Stevenson. But what a lot of people don't remember is he was vicious against McCarthy. When McCarthy called out the communists in the State Department that gave China to Mao Zedong. Also, you've hit on one of my favorite topics there, Noor, as you normally do. When you talked about the beginning of this was the Congress of 1815 in Vienna. Dr. Henry Kissinger's PhD thesis at Harvard was a work called A World Restored, the post-Napoleonic order that was put together by Metternich, Castlereagh, and others to set up this kind of new world order, which he hoped to be to get away from basically the Westphalian system, ultimately to restore Europe to the United States of Europe. That was Dr. Kissinger's PhD thesis at Harvard, was published in a book called The World Restored. So you're bang spot on this. Before I let you go, I know it's freezing cold. Are they viewing Trump coming back, the return of Trump and MAGA ascendant, as a problem to be dealt with? I mean, are they, because disease X and all everything you've given us over the last couple of days, and Naomi Wolf is saying, hey, when they're talking about disease X and these other things, misinformation, they already have their battle plan, right? They're not bringing these topics up for discussion. That's what they serve the public on the stages. But they have are they looking at us and they looking at MAGA as a problem to be confronted?
Oh, 100%. And that's why I said yesterday that they're going to throw everything they can at us in 2024 to thwart MAGA, to thwart America First. And as we're seeing with the insane lawfare going on, to thwart President Trump. And I would really like to urge the posse, if they missed Dr. Wolf's segment with you yesterday, to watch it, because Dr. Wolf goes straight at the heart of the Davos ideology, which is eugenics. And make no mistake, if you look at the history of all of these organizations, you will find the biggest proponents of eugenics. And they've just rebranded it in a way because the term is so negatively connoted. And so they've had to rebrand it in a different way. But it is very much a eugenics plan that we're seeing right now. And today's iteration of a Julian Huxley or of a George Bernard Shaw is obviously Bill Gates, who's been here this week touting these new health innovations. And we saw as well earlier this week on Monday, it was announced by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that they were going to deploy their biggest annual budget yet to finance all these things. And Bill Gates also on record again touting the necessity of controlling, quote, population growth. So he's here this week, and everything just ties together, Steve. And to mention again, Henry Kissinger, we're here in Davos in 2024 for the WEF. The WEF is an offshoot of Henry Kissinger's international seminar, and Klaus Schwab was one of Henry Kissinger's disciple. Klaus Schwab is on record saying that Henry Kissinger was his mentor and that they were very, very close. So,
Yeah.
as I said, it's intergenerational, and it goes back all the way to the Congress of Vienna, at least.
Noor bin Ladin, social media, how do people follow you when you're off air here at War Room, ma'am, and where do they go for your website?
Sure. My Getter and X are Noor bin Ladin, Substack, noorbinladin.substack.com, and you can find more information about the WEF with this website I created with my friend Nick Sharuti called weendfreedom.com.
Noor, thank you so much, and you're such a hero for staying out there in the freezing cold and reporting to us. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Anything for you guys in the War Room posse. Always a pleasure.
Well, you're fantastic, a big hero. What a warrior. Ben Harnwell George is from Rome. Ben, the British government's about to fall because of open borders. We're going to get to that in a second, because this is it's obviously a global problem of what they brought on. Give me your assessment of the first couple of days of Davos.
Well, Steve, firstly, good evening to you. I was interested in what Noor was just saying about this being effectively a socialist plot. I have to take a step back, however, in listening to that, because as far as I observe, socialism is basically, doesn't really, if you want to see socialism in action, look at the Catholic Church. That you have real sort of almost communist real believers there in the current Vatican Church. It doesn't really exist outside, however, in the international state. Look, if you consider the United States right now, the top 80% of the top 20% of wealth holders own 90% of the wealth. Socialism is really about taking wealth from those who create it and giving it to the poor. Nobody in power, and I don't think anyone in Switzerland is particularly interested in the state of the poor and the condition of the poor. What they're interested in doing is designing a system that those who are above the political process can game for their own benefit, and that's what we see happening. I think you saw last week the Guardian and a lot of the international press, in fact, came out with this study that said that the top 5 wealth holders, that is to say the 5 richest people in the world, doubled their wealth last year. This isn't natural. This is obviously not a consequence of socialism. It's a system, and Davos is instrumental here in gaming this system so that the rich get richer while the poor get poorer. And that's not a consequence of free market capitalism. Obviously, it's a problem with corrupt elites gaming the system. Davos, the thing that I saw in the last few days that really caught my attention, we corresponded about this, Steve, was this announcement. And some people, I think, were a little too quick to say that basically that's it now, the war is over. The president of Switzerland and the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, came out with a joint press conference, and they announced together that they were going to have a peace summit. And then, as I say, a lot of people hit social media saying, right, this is it, the war is over, basically. We can all go home. Very far from that, because it was just an illustration of how these people are manipulating the press to push out a certain message. The reality is very different. The reality in this situation is that what Zelensky was interested in was not a peace conference, that is to say, sitting down at the table with Russia and negotiating a ceasefire, because Russia was explicitly ruled out from participating in this conference. So you can't have a peace conference between 2 warring factions when one of the parties is not going to be there. The peace that Zelensky and Switzerland and, of course, all the international media were applauding was a peace on Ukraine's terms, that is, where the West would come in and give even more support to Ukraine than it's currently doing, perhaps taking a little bit of the slack that's being freed up now as the United States withdraws from this event. And eventually work towards a peace on Ukrainian terms. That, of course, wasn't in the headlines, and it was really sort of, you had to read the press really to the bottom paragraphs to understand that it was really just an innumerable occasion of the manipulation of the media by the international managers of events, because they think, Steve, as you would say, this is how stupid they think we are.
Right now, we're a Senate and we're in their heads. They still treat us like idiots. I want to go to something that I want to make sure the audience is following, because it's just like Brexit paralleled or was the forerunner to the Trump victory in November 16. Brexit happened in June of 16, but we worked on it for years beforehand. The British government may actually fall the same time that we're trying to shut down the government here, virtually on the same topic. It's different in a little bit, but I want to make sure people understand that Rishi Sunak, who last week I think either went to Ukraine or committed 2.5 billion more pounds that the British don't have, right, to the oligarchs in Ukraine. He's got a crisis of really invasion, right? It's invasion. This one, I think, a maritime invasion, and it's going to cause the fall of his government, exactly like we got to shut down the government here over the invasion of the southern border. It's pretty stunning how both of them are coming up at the exact same time, and it looks like the solution is going to be, in one, a government actually potentially falls here, a shutdown of the financing of the government. Can you explain to the audience what's happening in the United Kingdom?
Steve, there are very strong parallels between the UK and the US right now. If I can just interject with a simple observation, however, a single observation. It's difficult to express to other nations how, if you come from an island like the UK is, how you have an island mentality. And to some extent, the current migration catastrophe facing the United Kingdom right now, it hits us in the heart. Hits Brits in the heart even more than what you're seeing when you're seeing people cross the Rio Grande on the southern border, because we are an island. There is zero reason how people can be escaping illegally and entering illegally into the United Kingdom unless the government is conniving and allowing this to happen. So this is sort of really far more visceral, I would suggest, if it were possible. And I know Americans are increasingly without any patience whatsoever. Now, Steve, here's the parallel between the UK and the US. In both cases, you're dealing with a legislature where it has a rump of what the mainstream media will call the right or the far right or whatever you want to call it. But that the element of the right of the spectrum, which isn't part of the Uni-Party sellout, increasingly getting to the point now, perhaps they've gone beyond the point, where they are no longer interested in compromising, even with their own party leadership. They are going to sort of, they are sort of, even though they're numerically in a minority, they are now in a situation where they are not compromising, and they are insisting. And if the government falls in the United Kingdom, or if the Speaker is subject to a motion to vacate one after another, this is where these people are, because they are directly listening to and representing their constituents. This is not like the majority of the Uni-Party, where they basically think it's their life's mission to tell the people what the elites are going to give them for their own good. These are people who are listening to the people and feeding that back up into the legislative process. With regards to the UK, that there's this situation here with the immigration and the government's inability to deal with it. Specifically, there's a piece of legislation going through. They had the amendments, I think yesterday, and the final vote's taking place this evening, to do with moving people shipping people who've entered the country illegally out to Rwanda to have their asylum applications processed whilst they're there in East Africa. And of course, the European Convention of Human Rights keeps stepping in and blocking this. So you have a rump of 60 Conservative members of Parliament, and they're saying, look, this isn't good enough. They tried to table amendments yesterday, which were voted down because they didn't have Rishi Sunak's approval. And they're saying basically all we're doing is setting ourselves up for a future defeat with regard to the European courts. And people aren't, they're at the point where they're not going to accept this. Why is this so important, Steve? Because right now, and I flagged this up on our New Year's special, for me, the biggest international story that took place in the end of 2020 2023 and tipped over into 2024. I flagged this up was going to be the death. You remember, Steve, we discussed this. I said if Nigel Farage sort of rejoins this Reform UK political party, that it would be difficult to see that the Tory party could ever form a government again. I remember the conversation we had on air.
Yes. Yes.
3 weeks later, Steve. The UK press is now picking this up. They had a poll that came out in the Sunday Times last Sunday, and in that poll, Lord Frost, who's quite close, by the way, open brackets, to Boris Johnson, had commissioned Tory member of the House of Lords, commissioned a poll, and this poll, in Lord Frost's own words, indicated that the Tory party was heading towards, and I quote, an extinction event at the next general election. Now, I phoned the Tory party. I phoned their press office on Monday, and I asked them for a quote.
I tell you what. Hang on, Ben. Hang on 1 second. We're going to take a short commercial break. Ben Harnwell is going to join us on the other side. Also, Margaret Beifeld from American Stewards on the natural asset companies, these natural resource companies that are outrageous, is up on Capitol Hill. She's going to check in also. Make sure you go to birchgold.com/Bannon right now. Got to do it today. The End of the Dollar Empire. It's all free. Download it. Short break. Back in a moment.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, President Trump is coming up. He's going to give a speech here. We're going to be covering it wall to wall. Of course, Lou Dobbs follows us at 7 on the Lindell TV. And on John Frederick's radio network. But President is going to come up and speak at 7. We're going to be live streaming that on Getter and on Rumble and all our other platforms. I think over at Telegram also. So we'll be all over this and giving commentary. The poll out today, as I talked about in the 5 o'clock hour from NBC News, President Trump had 50%. Nikki Haley, the neocon Nikki, at 34%, and DeSantis, who should drop out immediately, at 5%. And so we've been telling Governor DeSantis, or giving our free advice over the air, that he should drop out immediately. You finish with 5 or under 5%, 5%. I mean, it's just a joke. Your national political figure time will be up permanently, and if you just keep hanging out here, it's going to be ridiculous. President Trump speaks at 7, maybe running late. As often as the case, given his schedule. So make sure you check it out today. New Hampshire, we have wall-to-wall coverage on New Hampshire. I want to make sure everybody's up to speed on what's going on there. Once again, the Birch Gold, take an opportunity to go to birchgold.com/Bannon and make sure, we always love the interaction of our audience with our sponsors. Make sure you get Philip Patrick and the advisors on the phone. It's time now for you to fully understand this de-dollarization movement, particularly among our allies, quote-unquote allies, like in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, that are trying to get off petrodollars and actually do transactions with the CCP, long-term output deals with oil in yuan, that to the detriment of the United States. So make sure you go talk to them about what's going on de-dollarization and read. You get for free The End of the Dollar Empire. We go through from the founding of the nation all the way up to these fights on Capitol Hill over a budget, about currency and about how important it was for us to have the prime reserve currency. Hey, if you didn't think it's important, look at the history of the United Kingdom, and particularly when the pound stopped being the reserve currency. They've had some pretty grim couple of decades there. Ben, and I'm going to jump as soon as we can get Margaret Beifeld, because she's been up on Capitol Hill. I've got to get her up as soon as she's ready to go. We'll cut in. But I want to go back, because this is so, this situation with the invasion, the Camp of the Saints, the invasions, and I realize that's a controversial book and it has some very ugly parts to it. But its overall thesis is one that should not be lost on people, about the elites' inability to protect the sovereignty of their own nations. This book was written back in the 70s, and a guy was sitting on a beach in Cannes, I think during the film festival, and came up with the idea. But we can, you mentioned about Nigel, but I just want to make sure people understand that this vote that's taking place today, and they may have another reading tomorrow or whatever, the British government, actually, the Tories may actually, is there a possibility, because you're having guys punching out of the party. I mean, it's vicious. It's as vicious there as it is here. Can the UK government actually fall? Do you think they'll avoid that over this? And explain to people what they're trying to do. They're talking about sending folks back that are trying to invade their country from the sea, correct? Oh, hang on for a second. I tell you what, we got Margaret Byfeld. You just put a pin in that, Ben. I want your answer. Let's go to Margaret Byfeld. She's been on Capitol Hill all day, the executive director of the American Stewards of Liberty. And by the way, I love the name of that organization. Margaret, you've been so great about this kind of weird thing called the natural asset companies. Are you making any progress up there getting in people's heads that this is a huge problem and it's got to be, Congress has got to step in the middle of this thing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had, of course, the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee has initiated a probe, and that's Bruce Westerman, Representative Westerman, and we've been really thankful to him for doing that. They are very serious at finding out what is behind the NAC issue. I will tell you, and we've been to a lot of members who are concerned. I would also tell you that one of the things that could be very helpful right now is the New York Stock Exchange could withdraw this application. If they withdraw this application, then this goes away. The SEC rule goes away. And so that's one thing that we would really encourage people to contact the New York Stock Exchange and ask them to withdraw their application for the NACs. And I think you can do that.
Tay, I think she froze up. Let's try to reboot. By the way, it was too difficult to do. We'll just try to get her on tomorrow because it may be it's a bad connection. I will also, I commit to this audience to get all the contact information for the New York Stock Exchange, and we will get on that first thing in the morning. So just hold on. I want to make sure if we go, we just have a show of force. Let's go back to Harnwell in Rome. Harnwell, talk to me about this, because you're seeing a firefight right now that we're in the middle of either shut down the border or shut down the government. And we're talking about the funding of the U.S. government. You know, you still do defense and all that. But tell me about the fight that's going on in England.
Well, Steve, to answer your question as you posed it just a few moments or so ago, can the government fall? I would say the government can't fall on this issue, on this vote, because it's not a confidence vote. And in any case, the government would have the numbers, I think, if it were a confidence vote to pass the bill. But that doesn't mean that Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, won't say, you know, I've had enough. I don't want to see this, my government stretched out and humiliated like John Major's government did before it was absolutely annihilated on May the 1st, 1997. He might say, because he's a young guy, Rishi, he's rich, his wife's very rich, he can potentially think of a future for himself outside of politics. Some people speculated he'll go to Google, like the former Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg went to Meta and I think he's number 2 now. So he has a potential future. He doesn't necessarily want to see himself humiliated by losing votes and losing amendments day after day. So potentially he could quit. Yeah, and not. I don't mean to say quit as Prime Minister. He might just say, okay, we'll go for a general election now. I do want to say, Steve, in the background to all of what's going on, and you had 2 deputy chairmen of the Tory party, parliamentary MPs, who resigned today because they voted for these amendments against the will of the party leadership. I will say this, that in the background to this, if you're looking at all of the little pockets of resistance and opposition against Rishi Sunak and the Tory party parliamentary leadership, there does seem to be a certain person there pulling the strings, who seems to be connected in one way or another to all of the most high-profile dissent. And that person, and this is a conversation for another day, is Boris Johnson. And he almost certainly would be thinking about a return to politics, a Trump-like return to the premier office of the state. As of course, Stephen, I'm just saying this. When he resigned, I do recall saying that Boris Johnson was not going anywhere in terms of his political ambitions. He definitely is there trying to make this as hard for Rishi Sunak as possible. And one of the strategies here that the dissenters are trying to do, because they know the party is going to get annihilated, and I bring up that quote again from Lord Frost, is facing an extinction event. One of the things that the dissenters are trying to do, Steve, is pin the failure squarely on Rishi Sunak and his uni-party colleagues. They want, if the party's going to go down at the next general election, they want him to go down on the back of failing to having done something about immigration. So that's part of the larger strategy of the background there. But don't ever, and I say this to the Warring Posse, don't ever take your eyes off Boris Johnson with all that's going on right now. He's certainly there, sort of making it worse.
Let me pivot back to something that is very relevant to this audience as we get involved and make these calls about the funding of the U.S. government. This peace conference is just, give me a sense of where Zelensky is in getting the Europeans to have a united front about Ukraine, because here I can tell you, and they don't even want to bring it up, it is adamant. The not just MAGA, but I think now the entire Republican electorate, except for the hardcore neocons, just we don't have the money. They don't want to talk about the supplemental. There's no interest. I mean, they're trying to hold our border hostage in the invasion, hostage here for us to react. But there's no appetite here whatsoever for any more money in Ukraine, except for the radical, anti-Putin crowd over in the Democratic Party, right? Who have made him like a demon, and they're doing that for cultural and social reasons, nothing to do with the national security aspect of it. But is because he's not welcome like a hero at Davos anymore. Is his time over? Is this cause of Ukraine over? The people generally want to have a real peace conference and a real negotiation, or are we just still in the middle of this thing?
The people, the European peoples definitely want to see that. I would suggest clear majority. There's been a majority in favour in Italy against supporting Zelensky. I think for the last 18 months, Italy's sort of, I think, at the vanguard of that. The European elites, the elites that run the political parties are lagging somewhat. And I have to say, I'm detecting here the presence of the United States sort of rallying and nudging the European countries along in their support of Zelensky. From the War Room's perspective, there's probably a little wrong with that, because Americans have wanted for some time to see Europe taking the slack a little bit more. And that's what Europe seems to be doing. I noticed that this morning, I saw something in the Financial Times that Germany, the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, had pledged some 3.23 billion euros to Zelensky in financial and military support. And interestingly, Steve, this was immediately criticised by, of all people, the European Commissioner, I think, for competition, saying, this is outrageous that Germany is giving this support unilaterally to Zelensky. He ought to be giving it to the European Union so we can disperse it via our own mechanisms. So obviously you can see that there's a tension here, that the European Union is trying to use the war in Ukraine as an opportunity, as for a power grab for its own power over member states. And you can start to see that the member states are cottoning on to this and trying to resist. So whereas, to answer your question in a roundabout way, there is a movement in Europe now. I think they're starting to, bizarrely, because the peoples are getting less and less patient, but the European leaders are starting moving ever so slightly closer to Zelensky and giving him a little bit more support now as America retreats. But interestingly, the background to this is that I think rather cynically the European Union now is using this as an opportunity for not just self-aggrandizement, but for it's a straight up power grab over the sovereignty of member states. So that, I think, is certainly a dynamic that we'll want to be watching on the War Room.
Ben, before we go, closing comments, observations on MAGA living rent-free in the heads of the guys in Davos. How knowing that we're ascendant here politically and they see it throughout the rest of the world, what could our audience look for as far as these demons go of trying to thwart MAGA, sir? Well,
out of not just out of Davos, but not only out of Davos, also out of the European Union. There have been a number of articles over the last 7 or 10 days of people on the left of the political spectrum saying, look, Trump is going to return and we're going to have to work with him. But the background to that is that it's not just a case that Donald Trump is returning and this reality is now sort of firmly recognized by the European elites. The European elites also, they're not just seeing Donald Trump, they're seeing a wider movement here. And we've flagged this up before on the show, and I think we're going to do a special at some point. This is the rise. They see this, they lump it all together with what they're calling the rise of the far right, which they're terrified about, especially in the European Union elections in June. And how everything I've just said, Steve, on the show today teased together, the reason that the far right, to use the mainstream media's term now, the reason why they're fearing the rise of the non-establishment right is because of this situation to do with immigration. So it's all of a piece. And I just close with this, Steve.
Yes.
There was an article in today's Guardian which had an Austrian think tank saying that immigration is going to rise it's going to be higher in 2024 than it was in 2023. This is the 5-yearly mandate for the European Parliament taking place right slap bang in the middle of that. So this is what's creating Davos really sort of their paranoia is that, and this has been a recurrent theme for Davos, is that their power over the control of the popular imagination right around the world is slipping out of their grasp, and yet they still don't want to do anything about the underlying cause of this in the United States and again here in Europe. There's always this issue, which is another article in the Guardian today said that immigration was becoming the number one issue right across the European Union. So if you have this immigration issue, I've said it before on the show, this is the number one existential issue facing the European Union. It means that the non-establishment political parties are going to be drawing a strength in Europe, as indeed is the MAGA movement in America.
Just like Brexit was the forerunner and set the predicate for the 2016, the June Brexit vote that got England's sovereignty back was a predicate for Trump's 2016 vote. The European Parliament vote that I think takes place in June. Once again, God works in mysterious ways. Will be the predicate for 2024. Ben, where do people go on social media to make sure they're following you, all your great commentary, analysis, and writings?
Beautifully put, Steve. That was an excellent synthesis. Yep, I'm on Getter. That's my social media platform of choice. Type in my surname there, Harnwell, @Harnwell, and that's why I have exclusively my thoughts, analysis, observations. Thanks, Steve. God bless.
Thanks, brother. Remember, one of the things we're trying to do here on the besides getting you ready for preparedness, to talk about different products that are coming out about health, is really to help build this alternative economy. We're tired of council culture. We're tired of the bank shutting people down, the law firms not taking on people but working for lawfare, the big media platforms. We're banned, I think, for life from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, all of it. The show's still massive. And one of the reasons we do this is to support entrepreneurs that are in this. Make sure you go to Public Square. Michael Seifert and the team over there have really built up an exchange. It's all for free. Just download the app or go to the website now. If you're an entrepreneur, you can list for free your products and services. And if you're curious about meeting these people, looking at their products, and stop giving money to people that hate you, you can go there. So go to publicsquare.com today and check it out. Immerse yourself in what's happening over there and support these patriots. It's totally free for you. So check it out, publicsquare.com, the backbone of the alternative economy. Also, Patriot Mobile, the folks there, it's a Christian company, has Christian beliefs, gives X amount of money to groups that, like veterans groups, Second Amendment, first responders. But this is a devout Christian a company, and you can get the service. What they do is they use the backbone of the cell service companies, the providers, and they take it on top of that, but you're paying them, and it's their service. This is so much is carved out regulatorily. But you can stop giving your money to people that hate you. Start giving your money to people that support your values. So go to Patriot Mobile. The team over there is absolutely incredible. Big supporters of the war room and big supporters of the alternative economy. Remember, we're building up an alternative economy for people that support your values, not people that hate you, hate your family, and hate your values, because that's what corporate America, quite frankly, the big corporations have turned into. How do I know that? Let me bring in Mike Lindell. You talk about a patriot, talk about a guy that's put it all on the line. I think only besides Trump, President Trump, it's put it all on the line. That's why I call him the American Cincinnatus. Mike Lindell's been there fighting day one. Mike Lindell didn't start as a guy that questioned elections or anything like that. It was the evidence. People don't know this, but Mike Lindell is a mathematical genius. I'm so stunned. That's why in his previous pre-Christian era. He was a card counter and a degenerate gambler because he's such a great mathematician. But it was just the math that said, hey, something's not right here with these elections. Once he got into it, all of a sudden Mike Lindell's canceled by Walmart, canceled by Big Box, and now canceled by Fox News, brother. Tell me what you got for the War Room Posse. We know President Trump's coming here. You got Lou Dobbs on your own network. I'm sure that has something to do with the Lou Dobbs shows. Follows us next. President Trump's going to speak to the nation. He's up by 16 points in New Hampshire by an NBC poll. Brother, talk to me about Fox's loss is War Room's gain. What do we mean by that?
Absolutely. All the commercials we were doing that we brought to them last week that they turned down the cash for. One of them was our blankets. We have all these blankets that came in, every kind of blanket you could think of, the best blankets ever developed. And remember, we take pride in every product we make. And there they are. Use the promo code War Room. That first square that you click on that. Logan, go ahead and click on that that square. Look at all the blankets that came in, everybody. All of these blankets for the War Room Posse. Use that promo code War Room, and we're going to have your whole order shipped for free shipping. We've got down blankets, we've got plush blankets. We've got all of these amazing blankets. And now we've discounted them even more for the War Room Posse, who has had our back. And you can call 800-873-1062. You guys take advantage of free shipping. Get those beds that my employees, the 100% made in the USA with the beds and the mattress toppers. We're in the biggest fight for our lives this next year. You all need to be sleeping well, and you all need to get the best sleep ever. So during the day we can keep trying to save our country and get our great real president reelected.
Okay, Lou Dobbs follows us here on Lindell TV. Of course, the president's supposed to speak at 7. We'll see if that's going to get. Normally, he's running a few minutes late. Mike Lindell, MyPillow.com, promo code WARROOM. Get the sale. Hey, if Fox is not going to let the audience see him, Mike Lindell here at Lindell TV, a real America's voice on Getter, on Rumble, all of it. War Room will. Make sure you take advantage of it. 800-873-1062. Brother Lindell, thank you. And thank you for getting Lou Dobbs to follow us. It's made my life. Lou Dobbs is next. Stick around. The president is going to address New Hampshire. He's up by 16 points. Let's close it out with a massive win. We're going to be back in the War Room 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I will guarantee you one thing. As sure as the turning of the earth, it will be on fire as we do the countdown to shutting down the government on Friday night. See you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.